Right, here we are. I am here with none other than Mr. Jaz Coleman, a man of many hats. He's here in Toronto today because he's on tour at the moment with his own band Killing Joke, being the support band for Tool on their current tour of North America and exposing their audience to what they probably aren't very familiar with is his brand of a different kind of music entirely to what the Tool arsenal is. But right now, I just want to touch base on 40 years of music with a band that's crossed all these different parallels, you know, come out of the scenes of punk rock into the new wave genre and past it all. Through all the decades, how has your experience since you started this band up in 1978 been as a sort of a roller coaster of how you wrote the music, the tone of the music itself, and how you've reacted to how the world outside really has sort of put these ideas in your mind to counter everything around you and sort of channel that into this sort of brand. Sometimes it could be viewed as vitriol, but also expression.
Well, you pretty much answered the question. I don't even quite rightly know what the question is. What is the question?
The question is, being around for 40 years, when other bands have just come and faded off, and all these genres changing around you, how have you sort of been able to keep the sort of the message throughout, almost like a constant credo with Killing Joke, and the message you put out, it's like a sort of a mantra in a way that you've created with the music and all your followers around the world, wherever you go. The times have changed, but the band, with all the political climate and everything outside environment changing, it's always really stayed, you've always stayed true to one meaning, and the message of the band's always sort of revolved around what's going on outside. Can you tell me about all the chronological sort of aspect of that, and how it's shaped your writing, your thoughts, how it, like the reactionism around you, that sort of thing?
Well, there's too much latitude in the question you're asking. It's not really specific enough. But Killing Joke's unusual for a lot of reasons. When I met Big Paul, one of the strange things was we met in a house full of psychiatrists or people who were studying psychiatry, and the actual guy who came up with the name Killing Joke was a guy who works at the Tavistock Institute of Human Behaviour, which is a think tank. They do all sorts of nefarious stuff, really. And he'd sign the Official Secrets Acts, and occasionally he used to take LSD and tell us about the coming corporatization of the world and other such things, and how people are basically manipulated or brainwashed, and this has been going on for a long time. And he cited the Frankfurt School, I think Lewin, as one of their influences on psychiatry, on, let's say, behavior modification. And so if you can imagine that this was the background to the nucleus of Killing Joke forming, we were privy to, at the age of 18, privy to unusual information. And of course, that tradition carried on. We met Leary and R.D. Lang. I met on a number of occasions and had some interesting conversations with him. So a lot of these ideas were talks about with pretty eminent people before we'd reached the age of 25, you know. So it's an unusual band in this way. And if you think that EG Records picked up on Killing Joke when we were 19, and EG Records had Eno and Roxy Music and
that's right,
and kind of left field artists who proved to sell a lot of records.
King Crimson.
Yeah, also.
Yeah.
And Sam Alder and Mark Fenwick saw us and were smitten by us, especially Sam Alder. And anyway, I've always been grateful to Sam and basically Freemasonry for basically giving Killing Joke a stable environment to develop their ideas.
Do you think that aspect of the esotericism and the occult and all that, you mentioned all these luminaries that you'd met back then, even Aleister Crowley had an influence and all that. Was that really throughout the, tail end of the 70s, even when you'd gone off to Iceland for a bit and then...
Well, I was 21 when I went off to Iceland.
Right, that period when you kind of wanted to get away from England because you thought the end of the world...
No, I didn't think the end of the world was happening. Oh, well, I think most people, 85% of people under the age of 24 thought we were all going to die in a nuclear war at that time, 85% of people. So, yes, I saw it as a reality. And it's funny that 40 years later, it really is a reality now.
Does that, sort of...
I mean, the strange thing is now, because of all the distractions with our sort of Huxley-like devices, that people really aren't aware that the doomsday clock is actually, closer to midnight than it's ever been. And that because they're living in their virtual worlds with this multiple distractions that the internet and social media offers, they're not really aware of what's happening on a geopolitical level. Their only point of contact with what's happening on the outside world is obviously through the mainstream media, and I don't really need to go any further at that point. That only to say that so long as we have media in just a small number of people, democracy can never thrive in this environment,
Yeah.
When we started as teenagers, part of it was to understand the true power structure of the world, and moreover, to see ourselves in context to it. And this we have done diligently in many respects. As we move into, we're in what they call a post-democratic age now, right. Which no one can really sort of tell me effectively what that is, but I suspect that a post-democratic age is where there's no democracy, and that's pretty much how it works out, really.
So we're pretty much as close to that end of the world as you can get at this stage.
Well, I don't see it as the end of the world, but it's much more dramatic than that. It's the end of Homo sapiens sapien, because he is mutating into Homo universalis, or Homo veritas, some say, which is a new human.
So we're about to...
We're living in the sixth extinction period. When you consider that we get all our food on the planet from 1/300th of the planet, all food comes from this. It's easier for the powers that be to alter the human digestive system than to try and refertilize the planet. So we're morphing into something different.
You're not saying...
the dreams are that we can download IQs of 600 plus and have life extension programs, which is all feasible. Mm-hmm. The downside of it is that we can't download our emotions. And if you consider that's, well, consider the word humanity for a second, which really defines us, for better or for worse. If we're going to lose our humanity in the process of downloading our consciousness into laboratory body parts, as it were, then we will have no humanity.
So what you're saying was,
and this is a terrifying but likely scenario when you have eminent figures like the head of the London School of Economics saying that in the future there will be two visibly different species. There'll be, well, we'll presume the elites or the 1% or less that will have access to these life extension programs. And they will look visibly different to the e-workers who will be like stunted dwarfs, and they will not have access to life extension programs. Right. So we're moving into a synarchic time, where biotech companies, they don't even care if there's World War III, because their idea is we can just put all the slush that exists on the top of the surface of the planet through 3D computer imaging and recreate the world in our own image. You see? This is the Neo-Promethean dream that lies ahead, unless there is a planetary awakening, which is what Magna Invocatio, this work that I've played to you, is all about. It's about the celebration of planetary consciousness. Consider this. At the moment, unlike the Cold War, where we started our career, there was a hotline between Moscow and Washington.
Right.
But now, we have so many countries with nuclear weapons, and many of them don't have hotlines between them. And there's so many flashpoints. The law of unforeseen consequences says that we can very easily be dragged into a major conflict. And nuclear weapons are really out of the question, because, it's not like Hiroshima. One nuclear weapon now,
right,
drops on London, takes out Paris and Madrid, and actually reaches as far as Iceland. They've got 650 radius miles, you see? So these are super thermonuclear devices. It's not like the firecrackers of Hiroshima.
No.
And so anyone who talks about the legitimate use of these weapons is criminally insane. Worse than me.
So it doesn't discriminate between East and West. Any leader in whether it be this...
Well, you see, look, radiation doesn't discriminate between any national boundaries, which is why we must evolve to planetary consciousness. Now, currently there are two models. You have a unipolar model, which is really the Western or Anglo-American model. And then there's the other model, which is referred to as polycentric, which could loosely be described as a council of nations, which I'm in favour of myself.
Can you elaborate on that side of it?
Yes. Well, we must have, by one means or another, have some sort of global governance, so that we can coordinate humanity's actions in a positive way for the sake of future generations. Yes. I do believe this. I don't see this as something that's like a fascist one world order. I don't see this. I see the polycentric model as the only one that will work, because you see what we've learned through the Brexit and the rise in nationalism is that actually there is a very strong link between indigenous people and the land, the soil. You see this more than anywhere in New Zealand. It makes you think about it in New Zealand. We call it tangata whenua, the spirit of the land. The land is sacred, is our bodies are part of the land. For me, this is something that can't be sold off.
Being one with the earth.
This and the spirit of your ancestors.
Right.
This is not being respected. You see, what I'm talking about is respecting cultural boundaries also.
Yeah.
When I consider that nobody even knows what an English rhythm is, for example,
yeah.
And that there's been like cultural genocide in the United Kingdom, for example, through the church or one thing or another,
sure.
Over the centuries. Like cultural renaissance is very important to me, and collective participation in this. The arts are so important. You know, Lawrence Durrell, he said, when the mob becomes the artist, we shall enter the golden age. And you know, I believe this, and this is the role of the arts. The arts are feared by modern governments because they're potential hotbeds of dissent. And rock music, for me, will always be associated with counterculture, not establishment, you know. And when you see figures like Geldof and Bono, it makes you think. I mean, these people like Bono go out of their way to facilitate some elite discourse, and you know, I only hope they've picked the right side, because you see, things are about to change on the planet. Yeah, I think so. Anyway, I want to spend my remaining years, apart from working with Killing Joke, working with the spiritual arm of United Nations, because Magna and Invocatio, in the end, is about world peace, and United Nations is the only framework we have for warring tribes to communicate with each other. So, and I feel the role of art, the arts, and certainly music, can do more than any political discourse at this stage.
It certainly brings people, all human, the race we are as humans together, I think, and it.
Anyway, I was honoured by your response to playing you back like the Raven King.
I thought it was absolutely.
Everything. You know, when I did the session in Russia, it was one of the most transcendent sessions of my life. It was
cathartic.
Well, it made me cry.
Yeah.
As it made you cry.
Well, I was bawling my eyes out when I heard this, and you were playing it back, and I just, even the video, the montage that was put together and pieced together with it's just this timeless piece, epic, and it captures, I mean, a man that, unfortunately, if I had the honour of to have sat down like I am with you and talked to him on a human level, I would have been touched by someone like that, because it's almost like I knew him.
You probably would have. He'd probably given you a slap.
Probably. I wouldn't doubt that, Jaz. I wouldn't doubt it. But just this larger, bigger than, you know.
Yeah.
And I wish there was more humans like that around.
Well, anyway, we'll take it to sort of the present.
Yeah.
Let's be existentialist for a minute.
Sure.
You know, Killing Joke is governed by the ancestral spirits.
Yes.
And like, for example, all of our dads are in the other world. And at least 2 managers. And when I think of ancestors, it's people who have goodwill towards us still living. Especially us in Killing Joke.
Sure.
And every night before we play, and we've done it for years, we pray, we do an invocation. And it starts off with the lines, Spirit of this time and place, be here now. It's an invocation ritual.
And it certainly feels, when you're stepping on stage or when you're doing the prayer, getting up to do what you've done for 40 odd years, that
we call on our ancestors to live through us.
wow.
Yeah, we do it collectively. Yeah.
And you feel the spirits.
Yes.
Right there with you.
Sure. Yeah.
And especially someone like Raven, who was so with you for all those years, as such a big part, played such a huge part in the shaping of this band too. You can't deny that he was someone.
It's not something that's in the past tense, because consciousness survives death.
That's true.
It's something present. In my reality, Raven can hear everything you're saying now. Anyway, it's been a great tour, and I've enjoyed our conversation. And please add your own impressions of what you heard and experienced tonight.
Thank you, Jaz. It really meant a lot, and I think it's important now more in this day and age to have someone like yourself writing these great pieces, having this amazing band. Can't think of any others that are doing this kind of work in this day and age.
You know, this band has proved so many things. I mean, it's we have so many musical children. We all know that, but
mm-hmm.
It's proved a lot of things. It's been our university, basically, where we've self-educated. But it's proved one thing. It's proved that communism works. If you split the pie equally,
it's true. It can work.
Everybody pulls together. Collectivism. And I don't mean Marxism.
No, that's a different, entirely different.
But we're lovers of liberty.
Everybody should get the same.
Or at least equal opportunities.
Yeah, I agree. It would be a better world.
I think that each one of us has the potential to become king or queen, secure in our own personal sovereignty. We then, when we do our will, what we're meant to do, or our God gift,
yeah, we
are spiritually and biologically in harmony with the universe.
That's what the whole world should be about.
Yeah, you see, the things that give you energy are not things you don't like doing.
Right.
Those are things that sap energy from you.
It's true, actually.
If you only do what you like doing, this gives you energy.
The good energy.
Great energy. You wake up 6 o'clock on a Monday morning, you can't wait for 9 o'clock to start. Right? And if you do something you don't like doing, it has the opposite effect. It sucks the life out of you.
And you just can't sustain yourself.
This is what do what thou wilt means. Do your God gift. Do your will. And nothing but what you love doing. That's the law. Love is the law.
It's universal.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Jaz. It's been an honour. Thank you so much, mate.
Pleasure, mate. Thank you.